Welcome to my YouTube channel, Bible Blessing Shave. You ever wondered why some of the deepest wounds in your life became the very reason you discovered your greatest strength? Why the betrayal that almost broke you, the rejection that left you questioning your worth, or the hardship that seemed impossible to survive somehow became the turning point that changed everything? There are moments when people intentionally try to pull you down, hoping your spirit will never recover. They speak against you, doubt you, and celebrate your struggles, believing they have written the final chapter of your story. But they forget one powerful truth. When God is involved, no act of evil can stop a divine purpose. What was meant to destroy you becomes the very thing that develops your character, deepens your faith, and prepares you for a greater calling. Every closed door, every painful goodbye, every delay, and every disappointment can become part of God's perfect plan to elevate you beyond what you ever imagined. The people who thought they were burying your future may have unknowingly been planting the seeds of your greatest season. Your pain was never wasted. Your tears were never ignored. Your prayers were never forgotten. God has a remarkable way of turning setbacks into setups, battles into breakthroughs, and broken pieces into beautiful testimonies. If you're in a season where nothing seems to make sense, don't lose heart. Your current struggle is not your permanent destination. Sometimes the greatest promotion comes after the hardest opposition, and the brightest light shines after the darkest night. In this message, we're going to uncover how God transforms evil intentions into extraordinary elevation, why your greatest attacks may actually be signs that something incredible is ahead, and how you can walk confidently into the future, knowing that no person, no obstacle, and no plan against you can cancel what God has already ordained. Stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you see your past, your present, and your future. There comes a moment in almost every person's life when the weight of disappointment feels unbearable. It might be the sting of betrayal from someone you trusted with your heart, the pain of being misunderstood by people who never took the time to know your intentions, or the crushing feeling of watching doors close one after another despite your sense of some. In those moments, it is easy to believe that the attacks against you have defined your future. You begin to wonder if the criticism is true, if the rejection is permanent, or if the setbacks are proof that your dreams were never meant to become reality. But one of the greatest truths you can hold on to is this: the attack was never the end of your story. It was simply a chapter, not the conclusion. The people who tried to discourage you only saw your present circumstances. They couldn't see what God was quietly building behind the scenes. They judged your life by what was visible, while God was working on what was eternal. Sometimes what feels like everything falling apart is actually everything being rearranged for a greater purpose. Think about how often life surprises us. The opportunity you desperately wanted disappears, only for something even better to arrive months later. The relationship you cried over ends, only to make room for healthier connections that bring peace instead of pain. The failure that embarrassed you becomes the lesson that later protects you from making much bigger mistakes. At the time, none of it makes sense. We naturally focus on what we have lost instead of what we are gaining. Yet, looking back, we often realize that the moments we once called disasters became the turning points that shaped our strength, wisdom, and resilience. God's perspective reaches far beyond our limited understanding. While we see a closed door, He sees a redirected path. While we see delay, He sees preparation. While we see defeat, He sees development. Many people mistakenly believe that hardship means they have been forgotten, but throughout life, some of the strongest individuals are shaped during seasons of pressure. A diamond is formed under intense pressure. Gold is refined through fire. Trees develop deeper roots during storms. In much the same way, your character is often built during the seasons you would never willingly choose. The attacks against you reveal strengths you didn't know you possessed. They teach you patience when everything feels rushed, courage when fear whispers to quit, and faith when there is no visible evidence that things will improve. These qualities cannot be purchased or borrowed. They are developed through experience. That is why your struggle is never meaningless. Every difficult season carries lessons that success alone could never teach. There may have been people who intentionally tried to hold you back. Some underestimated your abilities. Others spread false stories, questioned your integrity, or celebrated your setbacks. They believed their actions would permanently damage your confidence or destroy your future. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed your destiny depended entirely on their opinion. It does not. Human judgment has limits, but God's purpose does not. People can delay opportunities, but they cannot cancel what God has already prepared for your life. They can close one door, but they cannot lock every door that heaven has already decided to open. Their actions may create temporary obstacles, but temporary obstacles are never permanent endings. Sometimes God allows us to experience seasons where everything feels uncertain, because uncertainty teaches dependence. When life is comfortable, we often rely on our own understanding. But when the path becomes unclear, we begin seeking wisdom beyond ourselves. Those difficult seasons strengthen our relationship with God in ways that comfort never could. They remind us that our confidence should not rest in people, positions, or possessions, but in the one who remains faithful through every circumstance. That kind of faith becomes an unshakable foundation. Once you learn to trust God during your darkest moments, you discover a peace that external circumstances can no longer control. It is also important to understand that not every battle requires immediate answers. Sometimes we spend years asking, "Why did this happen to me?" When a better question is, "What is this preparing me for?" The answer may not come right away, but time has a remarkable way of revealing purpose. The experience that once caused tears may eventually become the testimony that gives someone else hope. Your survival becomes proof that difficult seasons do not last forever. Your growth becomes evidence that pain can produce wisdom. Your success becomes a reminder that perseverance often accomplishes what talent alone never could. So, if you find yourself walking through a season where the attacks seem relentless, remember this truth with all your heart. Your current struggle is not your final destination. The chapter you are living today is not the entire book. God is still writing your story. Every setback can become a setup for something greater. Every disappointment can become divine direction. Every obstacle can become an opportunity to discover strength you never knew existed. The people who expected your downfall may one day witness your restoration, not because you sought revenge, but because God specializes in bringing beauty from brokenness and hope from hardship. What they intended to end your story has instead become the beginning of a new chapter, filled with greater purpose, deeper faith, and lasting elevation. Never judge your future by your present pain, because God's plans are always bigger than the attacks you face today. God uses opposition as preparation for promotion. Approx. 750 words. One of the hardest lessons to accept in life is that growth rarely happens in seasons of comfort. We naturally want smooth roads, easy victories, and immediate answers to our prayers. We ask God to open doors, remove obstacles, and make the path clear. Yet many times, the very opposition we wish would disappear is the tool God is using to prepare us for the next level of our lives. Promotion is not only about receiving greater opportunities, it is about becoming the kind of person who can faithfully handle those opportunities. Before God entrusts someone with greater influence, responsibility, or blessings, He often allows them to walk through challenges that strengthen their character. What feels like resistance today may actually be preparation for the position you will hold tomorrow. Think about the people who have inspired you the most. Rarely are their stories filled with effortless success. More often, they are people who endured rejection, failure, criticism, financial struggles, broken relationships, or seasons when everything seemed to fall apart. Those experiences did not destroy them. They shaped them. Their hardships taught them compassion, humility, wisdom, and perseverance. Without those difficult moments, they might have achieved success, but they would not have developed the strength to sustain it. That is one of life's greatest truths. Getting to the top is one challenge, but staying there requires character. God is far more concerned with preparing your heart than simply changing your circumstances. There are moments when you may wonder why certain doors remain closed, despite your prayers and hard work. You question why someone less qualified seems to move ahead while you remain in the waiting season. It is tempting to believe that you have been overlooked, but God's timing is never accidental. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually protection. If certain opportunities had arrived too early, you might not have been emotionally, spiritually, or mentally ready to manage them. Success without preparation can become a burden instead of a blessing. God often develops your inner strength before He reveals your outward success, because lasting promotion begins with inward transformation. Opposition has a unique way of exposing areas where we still need to grow. When someone criticizes you unfairly, you learn patience. When you are rejected, you begin discovering that your worth does not depend on another person's approval. When your plans fall apart, you learn flexibility and trust. When life becomes uncertain, your faith deepens, because you realize that your security cannot be found in temporary circumstances. Every obstacle carries a lesson, and every lesson prepares you for something greater. While you may only see frustration, God sees formation. He knows exactly what qualities need to be developed before the next chapter of your life begins. It is also important to understand that opposition often reveals who truly belongs in your life. Difficult seasons have a way of separating genuine supporters from temporary companions. Some people celebrate you only when everything is going well, but disappear when challenges arise. Others quietly stand beside you even when they have nothing to gain. These moments of testing are painful, but they also bring clarity. They teach you to value loyalty over popularity, integrity over appearance, and meaningful relationships over superficial approval. The people who remain during your struggles often become the ones who celebrate your victories with sincere joy. Many individuals spend years praying for greater influence, financial increase, leadership opportunities, or personal breakthroughs. Yet they become discouraged when life becomes more difficult instead of easier. What they fail to recognize is that increased responsibility requires increased maturity. Imagine placing a heavy crown on someone who has never learned discipline or humility. The weight would overwhelm them. In the same way, God prepares you to carry greater blessings by strengthening you through smaller battles first. Every challenge is like another training session. Every disappointment teaches endurance. Every setback develops resilience. By the time the opportunity finally arrives, you have become someone capable of handling it with wisdom instead of pride. There will always be people who misunderstand your journey. Some will assume that your struggles mean you are failing. Others may even mock your waiting season because they cannot see what God is doing behind the scenes. Do not measure your progress by public recognition. Some of God's greatest work happens in private. Seeds grow beneath the soil long before anyone sees the harvest. Foundations are built before the building rises into view. In the same way, God often spends more time preparing the person than displaying the success. Although others may only notice the finished result, they rarely witness the countless moments of prayer, perseverance, self-discipline, and quiet faithfulness that made that success possible. As you move forward, refuse to see every obstacle as evidence that something is wrong. Instead, begin asking what this season is teaching you. Perhaps it is developing patience where there was once frustration. Perhaps it is building courage where fear once ruled. Perhaps it is teaching forgiveness, humility, wisdom, or deeper dependence on God. Every lesson becomes part of your preparation. Every trial adds another layer of strength to your character. Every moment of waiting refines your perspective until you are ready for what lies ahead. Never underestimate what God can accomplish through seasons of opposition. The challenges that seem to be slowing you down may actually be positioning you for a future far greater than you can currently imagine. Promotion is not merely about reaching a higher place. It is about becoming a better person along the journey. When your breakthrough finally comes, you will understand why the waiting was necessary, why the obstacles were valuable, and why God never rushed the process. Looking back, you will see that every difficult season served a purpose. The opposition was never sent to stop your destiny. It was used by God to prepare you for it. And when He finally opens the right door, no amount of resistance from others will be able to prevent you from walking confidently into the purpose He has prepared for your life. There are seasons in life when it feels as though every step forward is met with another obstacle. Just when you begin to gain momentum, something unexpected happens. A trusted friend disappoints you, an opportunity slips through your fingers, someone spreads false stories about you, or a carefully planned dream suddenly falls apart. In those moments, it is easy to believe that life is working against you. You may even wonder why God would allow so many hidden traps to appear on your path. Yet with time and perspective, many people discover a remarkable truth. The very traps that were meant to stop them became the stepping stones that carried them to places they never imagined. What looked like a setback was often a divine redirection. What seemed like a painful ending became the beginning of a much greater journey. One of the greatest mistakes we make is assuming that every closed door is a loss. We become so focused on what we wanted that we fail to notice what God is protecting us from. Sometimes the opportunity you desperately wanted would have brought unnecessary stress, unhealthy relationships, or distractions from your true purpose. At first, disappointment clouds your vision, making it impossible to understand why things happened the way they did. But months or even years later, you often find yourself thanking God for the very door that never opened. What once felt like rejection reveals itself as protection. What once felt unfair begins to make perfect sense. Life has a way of teaching us through experiences we never would have chosen. Perhaps someone betrayed your trust, leaving you questioning whether you could ever believe in people again. While the pain was real, that experience may have also sharpened your discernment. It taught you to recognize sincerity, to value honesty, and to stop ignoring warning signs. Instead of becoming bitter, you became wiser. Instead of allowing betrayal to harden your heart, you allowed it to strengthen your judgment. The trap that was meant to leave you broken actually equipped you with wisdom that will serve you for the rest of your life. The same principle applies to failure. Many people view failure as proof that they are not capable or talented enough. They see one mistake as the end of their potential, but failure often becomes life's greatest teacher. It exposes weaknesses that success tends to hide. It teaches humility, persistence, creativity, and resilience. Every successful person has experienced moments when plans collapsed, expectations were shattered, and confidence was tested. The difference is that they refused to remain trapped by disappointment. They chose to learn instead of quit. They transformed painful experiences into valuable lessons, and those lessons became the foundation for future victories. It is also important to remember that not everyone who opposes you has the power to determine your destiny. There will always be people who misunderstand your intentions, underestimate your abilities, or secretly hope that you fail. They may attempt to discourage you through criticism, jealousy, or manipulation. They believe that if they create enough obstacles, you will eventually give up. What they fail to realize is that God has the ability to use even their negative actions for your benefit. Their rejection may push you toward opportunities you would never have considered. Their criticism may motivate you to develop skills you otherwise would have ignored. Their attempts to exclude you may create space for new relationships that genuinely appreciate your value. In the end, what they intended as a stumbling block becomes another stepping stone on your path forward. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you begin trusting God's guidance more than your own understanding. You stop panicking every time life takes an unexpected turn, because you realize that God's perspective reaches beyond what you can currently see. You may not understand every delay or disappointment, but you begin believing that nothing is wasted. Every experience has value. Every challenge carries a lesson. Every difficult season contributes to your growth. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is God preparing me to become?" That simple shift in perspective changes everything. Growth often happens in ways that are invisible at first. Just as a tree develops strong roots beneath the surface before it grows taller, your character is being strengthened long before others notice the results. The world usually celebrates visible success, but God often works quietly behind the scenes, shaping your patience, humility, faith, and perseverance. Those qualities become the unseen foundation that supports every future blessing. Without that preparation, success can become unstable. But when your foundation is strong, no storm can easily shake you. As you continue moving through life, there will still be unexpected challenges. There will be moments when people disappoint you or circumstances fail to match your expectations. Yet you no longer need to fear those situations as you once did. Experience has taught you that God specializes in bringing good from difficult circumstances. He transforms pain into purpose, setbacks into opportunities, and broken dreams into better realities. Every obstacle becomes another opportunity to trust Him more deeply. So never believe that a hidden trap has the final word over your life. The trap may slow your journey, but it cannot stop your purpose. The betrayal may hurt your heart, but it cannot destroy God's plan. The rejection may close one chapter, but it cannot prevent a better one from beginning. Looking back one day, you may realize that the moments you once considered your greatest losses became the very reasons for your greatest growth. The road was not easy, and the lessons were not painless, but every challenge added another stone beneath your feet, lifting you higher than you ever expected. What others intended to block your progress became part of the path God used to elevate you. And because He was guiding every step, no obstacle was ever powerful enough to keep you from the destiny He had already prepared. There is something extraordinary about a life that has been transformed by God's faithfulness. It is not the kind of transformation that can be explained by luck, talent, or perfect circumstances. It is the kind that leaves people wondering how someone who endured so much pain could still stand with peace, confidence, and hope. Your greatest testimony is not simply that you survived difficult seasons. It is that you emerged from them stronger, wiser, and closer to God than ever before. The struggles that once brought tears to your eyes eventually become the stories that inspire others to keep believing. What once felt like a private battle becomes a public reminder that God never abandons those who continue to trust Him. When people see you today, they may only notice the confidence you carry, the peace in your heart, or the success you have achieved. What they often do not see are the countless nights when you questioned everything, the prayers whispered through tears, the moments when you felt completely alone, and the days when giving up seemed easier than moving forward. They see the victory, but they rarely see the process that produced it. They admire the strength, but they do not realize how many battles it took to develop that strength. That is why your story matters. Every scar carries a lesson, and every lesson has the power to encourage someone who is walking through a similar storm. Many people believe that a testimony is only about receiving a miracle or experiencing a dramatic breakthrough. While those moments are certainly meaningful, one of the most powerful testimonies is simply remaining faithful when life becomes difficult, choosing hope when circumstances suggest despair, choosing forgiveness when bitterness seems justified, choosing integrity when dishonesty appears easier. Those daily decisions shape a life that reflects God's character far more than temporary success ever could. Your testimony is built one faithful step at a time, even when no one else notices your quiet obedience. There may have been people who doubted your future. Some judged you based on your failures, your past mistakes, or the difficult season you were experiencing. Others assumed that because you faced hardship, you would never recover. They measured your potential by your circumstances instead of by God's promises. But God has a remarkable way of surprising those who underestimate His plans. He often chooses the overlooked, the rejected, and the discouraged to accomplish extraordinary things. Not because they are perfect, but because they are willing to trust Him through every season of life. When your life begins to flourish despite everything that once stood against you, it becomes impossible for others to ignore the evidence of God's faithfulness. Your testimony is not meant to make people admire you. It is meant to point them toward hope. There are people who feel trapped by fear, weighed down by disappointment, or convinced that their lives will never change. They need to hear from someone who has walked through similar struggles and discovered that God remained faithful through every step. Your honesty about your journey gives others permission to believe that healing is possible for them as well. Sometimes the most encouraging words are not spoken by someone who has never suffered, but by someone who has suffered deeply and still chooses to trust God. One of the beautiful things about God's work is that He rarely wastes pain. Every disappointment teaches compassion. Every failure develops humility. Every delay strengthens patience. Every challenge increases dependence on Him. Those qualities become part of your testimony because they reveal the transformation that happened within you. People are often more impacted by who you have become than by what you have accomplished. A peaceful heart in the middle of difficult circumstances speaks louder than impressive achievements ever could. It is also important to remain humble during seasons of elevation. Success has a way of tempting people to forget where they came from or to believe they achieved everything through their own strength. But true elevation always remembers the journey. It remembers the prayers that were answered, the grace that covered every mistake, and the mercy that opened doors no human effort could have unlocked. Gratitude keeps your heart grounded. Humility allows God to continue working through you. When you recognize that every blessing is a gift from Him, your success becomes an opportunity to encourage others instead of simply celebrating yourself. As your life changes, you may encounter people who once dismissed you but now admire your growth. It is natural to remember the hurt they caused, but your testimony becomes even more powerful when you choose grace over revenge. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It means refusing to allow yesterday's wounds to control today's peace. Holding on to bitterness only keeps you connected to the very pain God has already delivered you from. Let your transformation speak louder than your past wounds. Let your character become the evidence that God has truly changed your heart. Never underestimate the influence of your story. Someone is watching how you respond to adversity. Someone is learning from your perseverance. Someone is finding hope because you refused to quit when life became difficult. Your journey may encourage a person you never even meet. The kindness you show, the faith you demonstrate, and the peace you carry can become a testimony that reaches far beyond your own circle. God often uses ordinary people with extraordinary faith to remind the world that His promises remain true. So as you continue walking into the future, remember that your elevation is about much more than personal success. It is about reflecting God's goodness in a way that inspires others to keep believing. The hardships you endured were not meaningless, and the tears you cried were never ignored. They became part of a story that now shines with hope instead of despair. Your life is living proof that what others meant for evil, God can transform into something beautiful. Every challenge became a lesson, every setback became preparation, and every victory became a testimony of His unfailing faithfulness. That is the kind of story that changes lives, strengthens faith, and reminds the world that with God, no painful chapter is ever the end of the story. There comes a point in every journey when the season of surviving begins to give way to the season of thriving. After years of disappointment, unanswered questions, painful lessons, and quiet perseverance, you finally start to see the doors opening that you once prayed for. Opportunities begin to appear. Your confidence grows stronger. Peace replaces anxiety, and hope begins to feel real again. It is an exciting season, but it is also one that requires great wisdom. Many people know how to pray for elevation, but far fewer know how to walk through it with humility and purpose. True success is not measured only by how high you rise, but by the kind of person you become once you arrive there. God's blessings are never meant to change your character for the worse. They are meant to reveal the transformation that has already taken place within your heart when life becomes difficult. Most people naturally depend on God more deeply. They pray with sincerity, seek His direction, and recognize that they cannot overcome their struggles on their own. Yet when success finally arrives, there is always the temptation to rely on personal ability instead of continuing to trust the one who guided them through every storm. That is why humility is one of the greatest qualities a person can possess. Humility reminds you that every opportunity is a gift, every blessing is an act of grace, and every victory is possible because God remained faithful even when you felt weak. It protects your heart from pride and keeps your focus on the true source of your strength. As you step into a new season, you may find yourself looking back at the people who once doubted you, criticized you, or tried to stand in your way. Those memories can still bring pain, and it is understandable to wonder why they treated you unfairly. However, one of the greatest signs of spiritual growth is choosing not to allow yesterday's wounds to control today's decisions. Holding on to resentment may feel justified, but it quietly steals your peace and distracts you from the future God is preparing. Forgiveness does not excuse harmful behavior, nor does it require you to ignore healthy boundaries. Instead, it frees your heart from carrying burdens that no longer belong in your life. You cannot fully embrace a new beginning while constantly looking backward with bitterness. Purpose also becomes clearer when you stop viewing success as something that exists only for your own benefit. Every blessing carries responsibility. Every opportunity creates the chance to make a positive difference in someone else's life. Whether your influence reaches one person or thousands, God often blesses people so they can become a blessing to others. The wisdom you gain through hardship can encourage someone facing similar struggles. The kindness you extend may restore hope to someone who has almost given up. The compassion you develop during your difficult seasons becomes one of the greatest gifts you can offer to those who are hurting. True elevation is never only about personal achievement. It is about using your journey to bring light into someone else's darkness. There will also be moments when your new season brings unexpected challenges. Greater opportunities often come with greater responsibility. New levels require new discipline, stronger faith, and continued dependence on God. Success does not eliminate difficulties, it simply changes the kinds of challenges you face. That is why remaining grounded is so important. Continue seeking wisdom before making decisions. Continue valuing integrity over popularity. Continue treating people with respect, even when your position changes. The habits that carried you through difficult seasons are often the same habits that will sustain you during seasons of abundance. As your life begins to flourish, some people may suddenly want to reconnect after ignoring or underestimating you in the past. Others may speak kindly now because they recognize the success they once doubted. While it is important to remain gracious, it is equally important to practice discernment. Not everyone who returns deserves the same level of access they once had. God gives wisdom so that your heart can remain open without becoming vulnerable to repeated harm. Forgiveness restores peace within you, but wisdom helps you protect the future God has entrusted to your care. Another important truth is that comparison has no place in your new season. It is easy to become distracted by watching someone else's progress, achievements, or recognition. But comparison quietly steals gratitude and blinds you to the unique purpose God has designed for your life. Your journey has never been identical to anyone else's because your calling is unique. Celebrate the victories of others without questioning your own path. Trust that God knows exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, and exactly how to guide you toward it. When you stop measuring your life against someone else's timeline, you discover a deeper contentment that no external achievement can provide. Most importantly, never forget the lessons you learned during the valley. Remember the nights when prayer was your only source of strength. Remember the seasons when faith was all you had to hold on to. Remember how God provided when resources seemed limited, how He comforted you when no one else understood, and how He opened doors you could never have opened on your own. Those memories keep your heart grateful and prevent success from becoming a source of pride. Gratitude allows every blessing to deepen your relationship with God instead of replacing it. As you continue walking forward, let your life reflect both confidence and humility. Walk boldly because you know God has called you for a purpose, but remain humble because you know every good thing comes from His hand. Let your success inspire others rather than intimidate them. Let your words bring hope instead of boasting. Let your actions demonstrate integrity, kindness, and faithfulness in every situation. In the end, the greatest victory is not proving your critics wrong or making those who hurt you regret their choices. The greatest victory is becoming the person God always intended you to be. What others meant for evil did not define your destiny. God transformed every trial into preparation, every setback into growth, and every painful chapter into part of a greater purpose. Now, as you step into this new season, walk with gratitude, live with purpose, remain faithful in every circumstance, and trust that the God who brought you this far will continue to guide every step of the journey ahead.